Hey everyone, quick note from editing Y2K here. Before we get into the segment, this was recorded or streamed at a time before any sort of deal had been reached on the subject of rail workers and the unions and their carriers, blah blah. In the past couple of days, it seems that a tentative deal has been reached thanks to the power of the bully pulpit and President Biden. And the deal that I actually go over in the video seems to be the deal that they went with. That is to say, 24% raise over the next few years, ending in 2024, with an immediate, I think, 11 or 14, no, it was 14% backlog available for $11,000. So just in case the video seems a little bit outdated, that's because it is, and I felt like I needed to fill you in. With that said, enjoy the rest of the video. Oh yeah, going back to the strike from earlier, there's sort of a intersection between what I was reading in Kropotkin's book, and the importance politically of this strike in demonstrating a key flaw of capitalism. Is that capitalism is very good at optimizing for money efficiency. Like, what is the thing that you can do that will get you the most money for the least amount of money spent? You know, capitalism's pretty good at that. But what capitalism's really bad at is maintaining a stable economy, right? Because you lean so hard into efficiency inevitably that it is so efficient, so lean, that like the economy is so lean and efficient that any single shock anywhere could cause nationwide or even global disruption. For example, the rail workers in the United States, because they're striking, threatens to hold up an insanely big portion of the supply chain. I forget what it was, but you know what? Actually, while I have the opportunity here, I'm going to look at that news real quick. American rail worker strike. Yeah, supply. Oh, look at the. Oh my god. God, the framing from these news outlets is so bad. White House scrambles to avert looming railroad strike. Railroad strike. Supply chain concerns grow as deadline nears. It's like they're putting this on the worker or something. Dang, it's almost like having privately owned news outlets means that you're going to be more friendly to the owners and not the workers because you're funded by the owners. That's crazy. Yeah. A pair of unions representing 57,000 conductors and engineers say they are willing to strike over quality of life issues. Quality of life issues. Give me a fucking break. I mean, that may have even been the like words that the unions themselves use. Here, I'll just put the story on screen. But like, Jesus Christ, if it's a union going on strike, I guarantee you it's a little bit more than quality of life issues. Oh yeah, I'm sure the business groups are very concerned about it. Snarl, the country's supply chains. This, oh no, people aren't gonna get their Christmas presents on time or whatever. Okay, let's try to get to the meat of the matter. Yeah, they haven't reached a contract yet, so that's why they're going on strike here. Okay, Amtrak. Wait, hold on a minute. Fresh effort on Monday to step in and mediate the dispute, hoping to head off a strike. Meanwhile, Amtrak preemptively canceled 3 long-distance train routes that run on lines operated by freight railroads. So, they mentioned supply chain issues. Like, oh yeah, there's going to be supply chain issues because of the strike. Amtrak, one of the companies that would be subject to this, preemptively canceled these routes. They're doing the problem already. They're like, oh, I guess the strike is going to happen because we're not going to meet the demands of our workers, so we'll just fuck the supply chain up ourselves. Jesus Christ, dude. The two unions say quality of life concerns, primarily carriers' scheduling practices that leave many workers on call 24/7 every week of the year, remain a major obstacle to an agreement and one they're willing to strike over. Yeah, sure. Being on call 24/7 is a quality of life issue. No, it's a fucking essential, like, condition of work issue. Jesus. I would not work on a place. Imagine if your job demanded that you be on the job or potentially on the job 24/7. Like, you must be available to come into the office if and when we tell you, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every week of the year. Jesus Christ, you'd have to pay me an insane amount of money to agree to those terms. Oh my god. This is the smackdown right here. Railroads are using shippers, consumers, and the supply chain of our nation as pawns in an effort to get our unions to cave into their contract demands, knowing that our members would never accept them. Just above, yeah, like I said, who the fuck would accept these terms? Okay. So it looks like there's 10 unions that by the way, this is very sussy that there's a single group representing every single railway company. A little bit of a trust, if you will, might demand some trust busting. Yeah. So 10 of the unions have reached an agreement already, it seems. But there's 2 unions that are saying, hold on, this shit is unreasonable. And we want you to give better working life standards to our workers before we agree to anything. And we'll hold up the entire goddamn economy until you agree to this. And all you have to do to get the economy back running again is meet our demands. And judging from this, I can't imagine their demands are particularly unreasonable. Yeah. And see, the reason that this would result in disaster is because there's no backups. This is the only, like, there are several trade channels that the U.S. rail lines are an essential part of, which means if you remove it, those trade channels no longer exist. There should be multiple, like, in an economy of this scale, there should be multiple trade routes per, like, avenue of trade, if that makes sense. So, like, if you have, let's take North Africa, for example, historical, trade routes and whatever. Let's say that industrialization sees that there's, rail lines going through the Sahara. I'm sure there's a few, but, like, just constructing a hypothetical here. Railroads going from Morocco down to Mauritania, up to, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, down to Sudan, whatever. Ideally, for that trade network, you would have multiple rail lines that are on that same track, like almost like parallel rail lines that meet at rail hubs, But with the United States, what's happening here is that it's the equivalent of, in that hypothetical, instead of having multiple parallel tracks, you just have the one line. So if you have a line going from Tunis to Casablanca, between 2 cities, and the rail workers go on strike, that cuts that line. The problem with that is that you've now cut the only line of trade contact between those 2 cities. Or in this case, the only line of rail trade contact. There's still, like, truck ground shipping. There's still air shipping. But those aren't, in this case, those are not suitable redundancies to have. And the reason for this is because in a capitalist market system, it's not profitable to set up redundancies to make a durable and stable economy that can withstand a hit. So it is more profitable in the short term to have an economy that can get fucked by a single strike. And I guess it sort of works in the favor of the owners too, because they get to demonize strike workers. In fact, let me open Paint. Let me open Paint to show you what I'm talking about. This has turned into the I explain why capitalism is bad for economic reasons live stream. All right, so here we have North Africa, right? Here's Morocco. Beautiful. And then over there is like Algeria or something. Here we have a city. Just pretend this is Africa. Shh. See, look, there's Gibraltar. Damn it. Here's a city. You'll say this is Algiers. Okay? And then here is, I think this is actually about where it is. Casablanca, right? With me so far? And then I'm gonna pick a different color. What's a good color? Let's start with gray. That's the color of a railroad. So then between these two, it's like, oh, we gotta have trade routes. So there's a railroad that goes like up this way and then over here along the coast, blah blah blah, and then boom. So this goes here, and it goes there, right? Great, awesome. You have a trade route now. Look. Railroad. So, in a capitalist system, which is what we have in the world, you know, global economy is neoliberal, capitalist, blah, 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 buzzword. In that world, if there's a single strike, this whole trade route is fucked, which means these two cities now can't trade with each other. But in an economy that's not run on profit, it might still have a market system, but if it's like market socialist, then then you have not just one railroad, but maybe another one that goes over here, you know, down this way. Maybe you have another one that goes parallel, right? You introduce more routes to the trade network, right? So there can be bridges, tunnels, blah blah blah. That makes that possible. So, in that world, if there's another like problem with the rail line, there probably wouldn't be as many strikes in a market socialist world because the workers would own the workplace. But let's say there's an equivalent event like, oh no, we had some catastrophic incident at our like offices or whatever. For whatever reason, we're not able to run this rail line anymore. So that's at a commission. But now there are 3 other rail lines that you can still use to deliver stuff from here to here or vice versa. Right? But in the United States, we don't have that. All we have is the one rail line has an X through it. Not because of the workers, mind you, because Amtrak did that preemptively. You know, companies are just fucking allergic to meeting workers' demands. See, look, times 4. There's 4 of them now. Right? This is why socialism is good. This is why capitalism is bad. This kind of trade organization would only be possible in a like market socialist setting or further left, because otherwise you have a profit incentive to actually not build these other 3 railroads. Why would you need them? You already have this gray one right here. What, it could go out of commission? That doesn't matter. It's going to be hella expensive to build these other things, right? We can, but we don't want to. That would cost us so much fucking money. But ultimately, it would cost everyone a lot more money. Or actually, you know, not just money, but like, you know, standard of living if you only built this one. But that's not what capitalism concerns itself with. I know this is basically a copy of what Vosh said, but, you know, it's important to understand. All right. 3-person board to study the issue and freeze negotiations until July, until labor laws. Okay. Recommended last month that workers be given raises amounting to 24% over 5 years, ending in 2024, with a 14% raise backdated to 2020 available immediately. This is pretty good, I think, because that means the wages at least keep pace with inflation, you know? Yeah. Punitive scheduling practices, all the associated garbage. This is interesting. Every time they list the workers, like, concerns, they say workers say, but then, I don't know, maybe they're just calling it 50-50 because, they're probably just calling it 50-50 because that's what news orgs do in America. Yeah. What did I say? What did I say? The round-the-clock schedules were a big enough issue to merit a strike. He said he and his coworkers felt newly emboldened by recent labor successes at companies like Starbucks. This is why companies don't want unionization. You see this policy? This policy up here? Where is it? Where is it? Round-the-clock scheduling. This policy right here is only possible in a world where unions are not a pervasive thing that exists. Because Starbucks unionized, and because other companies are starting to unionize again, workers are starting to revolt against these kinds of practices. This is the end to which businesses wanted to crack down on unions, because they're bad for those businesses. They're not bad for the workers. They're good for the workers. They're bad for the people at the top, because it means they don't get to make 300 times as much as the workers. Now they only get to make 100 times what the workers make. You know? Or, you know, less than that. Now they only get to make 50 times what their workers make, instead of, you know, 300-400 times. We're not losing guys because of some money. See what I told you? You'd have to pay some insane money for people to be okay with this. We're losing them because of the lifestyle, and we're not able to hire because of the on-call stuff. Phenomenal. Epic union work. The unions have done it again. Sorry, that was kind of a... You know what? I should make that a segment. Like, I should upload that as its own thing. That'd be good. But yeah, the marriage between that and what Peter Kropotkin is saying in his book is that the economy should be organized around the needs of the community first and foremost, even if it costs a lot of money, because we have that. We invented money. We can just make up more of it or whatever. We can, you know, basically discard money if it means that, like, communities get served better. And, you know, of course, like, how are you just going to discard the concept of money? As hard as it is, it really is probably as simple as just discarding the concept of paying for things. Not like, so when people hear discard the concept of money, what that often gets interpreted as is assume you have no money. That's not what we're talking about here, because that still assumes that money exists somewhere. We're talking about money is not a thing. You know, the concept that someone would demand that you pay, like, some abstract token for things that you need to survive, nuh-uh, that doesn't exist. What are you talking about? You know, obviously you would still have to have a considerable portion of the population working in, you know, in certain jobs to maintain a society, a livable society regardless. But that's not money. That's just like, that's like chores and housekeeping and stuff, but on a larger scale. But because it, you know, because this is such a pervasive concept and because people want so much of it, it leads to very poor organization of macroeconomics that people are going to suffer from, and that people are already suffering from. So basically, build more railroads. Except we know that it's not going to happen because it, you know, not profitable enough. But